Burke's Peerage, London Genealogical Society, October 28, 1996, published an article that said that Bill Clinton is related to every Scottish monarch and to the current British royal family. He is related to every ancient aristocratic family in Britain today. So says Burke's Peerage. In a book entitled Ancestors of the American Presidents, put out by Boston Genealogical Society, I have learned that Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter and George Bush and Bill Clinton are all kin. Let me give you an example. Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford are kin back, Nixon 12 generations, Ford 14 generations, back to the same man and his wife, Stephen Batchelor. Mr. and Mrs. Stephen Batchelor. They're distant cousins. Isn't that amazing? That's Richard Nixon and now Jimmy Carter. What about Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter? Well, 8 generations take them back to Richard Morris and his wife. So they're cousins. And can you imagine, who was it that Richard Nixon picked to succeed him when he resigned the presidency? His cousin. And then when the term of office was up and Jimmy Carter ran for president against Gerald Ford, surprise, surprise, cousins. One a Democrat, the other Republican, and they're all cousins. I got news for you folks, there's somebody in control. And for all the Republicans that are here today, I want you to know that George Bush Jr. is going to run for president, whether you like it or not.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help. responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.